everyone, it's Keeley here for Soy and Shea, and thank you so much for joining me for today's soap making video where we're going to go and make Persimmon and White Lily. Now, I've had this fragrance in my candle range for a long time and I have been wanting to make it into a soap for at least 18 months, if not a full 2 years, and I've just never got round to doing it. Kind of that little bit of thing of how am I going to make the embeds, because I knew I wanted to make this a decorative one. Well, I've kind of got my soaping mojo on, which is why all of the counters are in an absolute mess at the moment, and I have got down to making the embeds. Now, first up, I made some little persimmons here. So I've just had a little bit of orange and a little bit of red soap dough. I blended together, rolled it into a ball, and then I have piped, don't look at me, piped some little leaves on the top to get them looking like little persimmons. Now, I did also want to pipe some white lilies, but they have proved to be really, really tricky. And no matter how long I've waited for that soap to sort of set up ready for piping, I just cannot get the leaves or the petals to sit up nicely and look like white lilies. So I did think, fine, we won't put the flowers on. And then I remembered I had this little floral mold in my soap dough lot. It doesn't have a 6-petaled flower on it, but it has a 5-petal, which is close enough to looking like a lily when we use artistic license. So that is what we're going to go and make. First up is some little white lilies to go on the top of this soap. Let's go. So to make them, as I said, I have got this little mold here. Now, I had this from when I was running Pimp My Soap, and it is one of my most well-used molds when it comes to doing florals. What I'm going to do is just break off, not that bit because that feels a little bit exposed to the air. I'm going to break off just a little bit of yellow soap dough here and just break off the tiniest little amount, and in the center of this little flower there is a tiny little centerpiece, a little hole just big enough to put a little ball of soap dough. So I'm gonna get that into the center like so. Then I'm going to grab a little bit of my white soap dough here. I always try and get just a little bit more than what I think I'm gonna need. I'm gonna roll it into a ball. Let's do it so you can see what I'm doing. And then I push it into the top, and I'm pushing it quite firmly to make sure it adheres to that yellow we've already put in. I'm gonna grab my little scraper tool and take the excess off it. And then I'm just going to gently peel my silicone mold back until I can get access to the flower, and then just gently pick that up like so. Now, I could leave it like that, but I am just going to have just a little bit of a play. I'm gonna squish my petals just a little bit to give it a bit more of a lily-ish sort of look. And then I'm going to bend my petals up like so. And I know it is not a true lily, but maybe there's some persimmon flowers. We can really use our imagination on this one, but that is how I'm going to actually create those little white flowers to go on this soap. So again, I've just grabbed myself the tiniest little bit of yellow. You don't want anything that is sort of bigger than the whole, otherwise you end up with it spread throughout your flower and then it just looks a little bit funny. So we're going to grab a bit more of that white. I like to roll it into a ball just to get that nice smooth finish. Push it in. That was an awful lot, but that's okay. We can scrape off the excess. And then again, just going to pull the mold back until it releases our flower, or I can at least get under it. It's whoop, just like that. And again, I'm just kind of squishing the petals just because this is actually quite a thick flower when it comes out of the mold. I'm going to push up the little leaves, and I'm really quite pleased with how they are coming up. Now, I think I'm only going to do 1 flower per bar of soap, so you'll get a little persimmon on the top along with that little flower. So I need to go and make myself another 16 of these flowers, and then we can get on with making the soap. All right, so I've got all the little embeds done up. I am super happy with them. Might not have been what I initially intended, but I think this is still going to work. So we're going to pour in our lye solution into our oils, making sure not to have any splashback. I'm going to mix them until they come to a light emulsion, and then I'm going to separate them out for some colors. Now, when I am mixing, I don't always have my stick blender on the entire time. Simply stirring it can really help to bring those oils together. If you use this too much, you're going to trace this too quickly, and I know with this fragrance oil from doing it with the wholesale, it accelerates. Sorry, I had someone come into the shop, so I had to kind of stop talking abruptly there and go and get my music back on. So I've just mixed these up. In here, as you can see, I've got some titanium dioxide dispersed in some water. I've just also mixed up a bit of green for doing some piping at the end. I'm going to leave that till later. This one here is a little bit of red desert mica with a little bit of tangelo pop to give that really dark orange. And then to get this color in here, I'm super pleased with this one because this is such a, I was finding it a really difficult color to actually obtain, to get that persimmon color. They're kind of like an orangey yellow. So I mixed some orange pop with some Wellington, and it's looking really, really good. Now, I know, as I was saying, from doing wholesale soap, that this one actually does move on me quite quickly. So I'm going to put all of the fragrance into the main pot there. I don't actually know if it discolors in white, which, so I wouldn't have put it in there anyway, but I just don't want to mess around with having to stir too much. So I've popped it all in there. I'm going to grab a mold while I'm stirring that one. Nothing like multitasking there. It is behaving a lot better than my wholesale ones. Mind you, I do think with the wholesale ones, I was rushing a little bit and probably stick blended a little bit too much. Even on the second batch, I think I over stick blended at the beginning, and that really just does not help with the whole acceleration thing. So I'm going to pour in this orange color. I haven't actually decided what sort of pour I'm doing either. Let's do a curly whirly. Nothing like working on the fly. Let's get this beautiful dark orangey colour in there, because quite often those persimmons have got that sort of orangey yellow look, but occasionally you get them with those really dark orange patches as well. Gonna get our white in there. And it's smelling so good. I remember when I actually bought orange and persimmon out into my range, it was just before 2020. I think I bought it out in mid 2019 when it first kind of hit our shelves, and my customers absolutely fell in love with it. And then we all know what happened in 2020. And all of a sudden, I couldn't get this fragrance oil anymore. And I actually had to go to the manufacturer and say, how do I get more of this fragrance oil? And they told me I had to order 20 litres of the stuff. And because my customers loved it so much, I did. I ordered 20 litres of this fragrance oil, and I have gone through it because my customers do really love this in the candles. It's one of those that it's got sweetness from off of the persimmon, and it's got that sort of white floral as well. So although it's sweet, it's more of a natural sweet than a a sweet, sickly sweet. It's kind of like this real happy balance of a floral and a sweet together, and it just proved to be so popular. People love it in summer. Yeah, it's definitely more of a spring summer sort of fragrance, but I actually really like this in winter as well. I quite often burn this as either a melt or a candle because there's something about it. It's nice and calming. But we've got that one all scraped out. I need to shuffle that down a little bit, make it a bit more even. Let's grab my little things here and just pop that under the mold, and then we're going to sprinkle the remaining of this on the top here, just making sure as well that when I do this I've got somewhere to sit the persimmons and the white lilies so that they don't get lost. That was the other thing I was trying to achieve with the colours, was to make them different enough from the embeds that the embeds show up, but also complement them, because that's what we want. All right, let's get that white out as well. Really, really happy. And then we actually might put a chopstick through that just to get a little bit of a swirl going. All right. Let's do a little figure 8 swirl through there just to get a nice gentle mix of colours. And then I'm going to leave this sit for just a couple of minutes because it is still a little bit too fluid to put the embeds on without them sinking to the bottom. So, or at least sinking too far into the soap. Just going to make sure that soap is off the sides of my molds. We get nice finish. Just wiggle that back into the corners where I've pulled it away too much. We'll leave it there to set for a couple of minutes, and then we'll come and put the embeds on. And I'm going to clean up my mess while I wait. All right, so I am still waiting for the green to set up to do the piping, but I do still need the top of this to be soft enough that we can pop our little embeds on like so, and so that they will actually stick to the soap. So I'm going to pop our little embeds on here, and then I will come in a bit later with the green and just pipe a little leaf with each of our little white flowers. And I already know I have saved way too much of the green, but it's so hard just to save, you know. I probably only need about 20 grams worth of soap to do the little piping of the leaves, but to only save that much and then to try and stick blend it to get it to the right piping thickness is just virtually impossible. So I'm going to stick all these on here, and then I will come back. Well, you'll see it very quickly. I will wait for the green to set up and then come and pipe on those little leaves, and then I will bring you in for a closer look. So Persimmon White Lily is now in the mold, and I am absolutely loving how this has turned out. As I said, it's a soap that I've been wanting to make for so long, and although the flowers aren't quite what I initially pictured, I am super happy with them. They could actually just be persimmon white flowers, as I said before. Now I did decide to add on 2 leaves onto the flowers. I noticed a couple of these flowers around here when I piped the leaves, they were moving, which meant they weren't very secure in the soap, and I didn't want them to fall off, so I added that extra leaf just to give them something else to actually hang on to. But we're going to leave this one set up overnight. We'll be back in just a moment and we'll take a look at what swirls we've got on the inside. All right, it is the next day. We're ready to cut into a Persimmon and White Lily. I am loving the color that this one has gone. I'll definitely have to try and remember to mix a bit of orange and yellow together again to get that sort of colour. It's almost like a sunshine yellow sort of colour there. Really happy and absolutely perfect for a persimmon. I have got just a couple of people sitting on the bench out the front of the shop here that are making a bit of noise. So hopefully that's not coming through onto the video. Oh, I've managed to miss, oh, I've missed everything. I thought I actually might chop a couple of leaves off the little flowers, but no, all perfectly intact. Gonna remove the end. Oh, and it looks like we've got a giant fried egg in the middle of this soap. Oh dear, I hope the rest don't look like fried eggs. Let's take a look. Oh no, they don't. That one actually looks a little bit like a persimmon with 2 white eyes in it. Oh, I obviously need some more sleep here. And there is another one there. Absolutely love the swirls that have come up in this soap. Oh, that's much better. We're getting those nice curly whirly swirls on this one now. It is smelling so good as well. It's such a bright, fresh fragrance. And as I said, it's kind of like that perfect blend between a floral and a fruity smell. And a lot of people do actually really take to this one once they have a bit of a smell. It has been super popular when I first brought it out in my range, though since moving to the Sunshine Coast, it has been a little bit overlooked. But I'm sure once I start showcasing it in the soaps and things, more and more people will start picking up the candle fragrance again, because yeah, it's really, really nice. But absolutely loving the swirls that are in this one. And those little persimmons on the top, they are so super cute. I've just had this design in my head for so many years, and I am so happy that I have finally got my butt into gear and have made it. So there it is. That is the Persimmon and White Lily soap. It will be on the shelf and online towards the end of March. I hope you've enjoyed coming along with me today as I made this soap. If you did, why not leave me a thumbs up and any comments down below. And until the next video comes out, I hope you have a good one. I'll see you then. Bye.